The forest was dead quiet that morning. Even the usual chorus of birds had gone silent, as if they sensed something I didn't. Frost clung to the underbrush, glittering under a weak sunrise that filtered through the bare branches. My breath came out in small clouds as I adjusted the rifle strap over my shoulder and pushed deeper into the woods. I'd been hunting here for years, ever since I was a boy, really, and I thought I knew every hollow, every trail, every echo. But that morning, the forest felt different, older somehow, watching me. It had started with tracks, deep paw prints leading away from a frozen creek, large, far too large for any normal wolf. I followed them for an hour, my heartbeat sinking with the crunch of snow beneath my boots. The prints were erratic, as if the creature limped or dragged one leg. Maybe injured. Easy prey, I thought. That's when I saw it. A gray shape moving between the trees. For a moment I thought it was a shadow. Then the head lifted, and I saw the eyes. Not yellow like a wolf's, but almost human. They locked with mine, and I felt something twist inside me. A strange pull of recognition and fear. The shot came out of instinct. One crack of the rifle and the thing fell. I remember the sound. Not a growl, but something closer to a cry. When I reached the body, I froze. It was a wolf, yes, but the face. The face wasn't quite right. Its features were sharper, the limbs too long, and its fur streaked with streaks of silver like hair. Blood seeped into the snow, steaming in the cold air. And then, as I stared, it changed. I blinked, and for the briefest second, I saw not a wolf, but a woman lying there. Pale, eyes open, lips trembling. A woman with the same gray hair streaked through her scalp, staring up at me with a look of betrayal that pierced straight through my chest. I stumbled back, nearly dropping my rifle. When I blinked again, the woman was gone. Only the wolf remained, lifeless and still. That night, the howling began. It came from the tree line behind my cabin, low and mournful, echoing across the valley. I told myself it was just a pack mourning one of their own. But then I heard the second sound, something heavier moving just beyond the tree line, slow, deliberate, and I swear I saw eyes, 2 points of gold light, watching from the dark. By morning, the prints were there again, huge, deeper than before. They circled the cabin, and in the snow by the door, a single paw print turned into a human handprint halfway through. That's when I remembered the old stories, the ones the locals told about the Wolf of Darnell Woods, a spirit of vengeance that protected its kin. They said it could take the form of man or beast. They said it never stopped until the hunter paid his due. I laughed it off once, but that night, I didn't sleep. That first night after the shot, I dragged the kitchen table up against the front door and wedged a chair beneath the knob for good measure. Paranoid, maybe, but I didn't like the way the house felt. Too still, like the walls were holding their breath. The clock above the sink kept time with a hollow tick that made my nerves dance. I didn't mean to fall asleep. I was sitting at the window, mug of coffee gone cold, watching the line where trees become dark sky. Sometime after midnight, my head dipped, and the dream took me. I was back at the creek. The ice was a mirror, if a mirror could be black. I could see my reflection, and beside it, another figure looming taller. Not a wolf this time, a man. His shoulders were wrong, his arms too long, and his hair spilled to his shoulders like a mane. He touched the glassy surface and ripples spread, and in the ripples I saw the she-wolf's face become the face of a woman again. Her lips barely moved. Give her back. I woke because something lightly tapped the window. Tap, tap, like a fingernail. The glass was fogged from my breath. I wiped a circle clear with my sleeve. A smudge of frost on the outside melted and reformed into a shape. 4 marks, then a 5th, set apart like a thumb. For a slow second, a hand was pressed to the other side of the glass, larger than mine, the fingers ending in shadows that weren't quite fingers. I tried to move, couldn't. The air felt thick, heavy. When I finally forced myself upright, the hand slid down the pane, leaving 5 pale trails like chalk on slate, and was gone. By morning, I found tracks again, circling the house in a figure 8. The prints started as paws and became bare human feet halfway through. Each step melted the frost in perfect ovals. Each oval was aimed at my front door. I lasted until noon before I drove into town. At the diner, the waitress poured coffee with a stare that made me feel like a child again. There were hunters at the counter in camo jackets, but they avoided my eye. Old Mr. Landry from the hardware store sat in back, his hands folded around nothing, as if holding a ghost of a cup. "You went into Darnell," the waitress said at last. It wasn't a question. "I've hunted there all my life." "Not there," she said flatly. "Not that part." I told her about the prints, the dream I didn't want to call a dream. I left out the moment of the body, the flicker of the woman's face, because I didn't know how to say it. She listened without interrupting, except to glance once at the window, the way you look where a storm will come from. An old woman in a knit hat turned in her booth. "My mother told it," she said. "Long before you were born. A guardian that walks as people and as wolves. Kill a mother wolf, and the guardian follows you until the dead is balanced. Not just vengeance, balance. The wood has its reckoning." "What balance is it?" I asked. "If I'm sorry, if I make it right, what then?" "Don't mistake saying sorry for making right," she said. "A life taken leaves space. You can't fill it with a word." Her gaze flicked to my hands, quick and sharp. "If it's a she you took, you'll hear crying before the end. Wolves don't bury their dead the way folks do. The guardian will make you witness, until you act." "Act how?" But she just shook her head, as if the rest depended on me. On the way out of town, I stopped at the little library. The librarian, who knew every rumor coded into those stacks, didn't laugh. She pulled out a local history with a brittle spine and traced a finger over a story from 1923. A hunter who swore the forest came to his door at night, a song in the wind that sounded like a lullaby sung through a throat full of gravel. He built traps. The traps found nothing. He moved houses. The song followed. The last line of the story was underlined in pencil. He returned what he took, and the singing ceased. No explanation of what returned meant. Back home, I cleaned the floor where the prints had melted the frost and tried not to think about lullabies. Twilight fell fast. The trees gathered their shadows and advanced to the edge of my yard. I triple-checked the locks. I turned on the radio for company, but every station dissolved into static as soon as the sun slipped behind the ridge. The clock ticked louder. The wind began to move, and with it, a sound like something vast breathing in time with me. I heard a soft scrape on the siding, then another. Not claws, wood on wood, like someone was writing against the boards. I grabbed a flashlight and an old coat and eased outside, the cold snapping at my face. On the west wall, near the bedroom window, 5 long marks had been cut into the cedar planks. Not deep, but deliberate. At the end of the 5th line, a curve. The shape was almost a letter, almost a symbol. From a distance, it looked like a crescent moon. Up close, more like an eye. The breath behind me fogged the beam of my light. I spun. No one. The wind shifted and carried a smell that wasn't quite animal and wasn't quite human. Wet leaves and iron, rain and bark. For a heartbeat, the yard seemed to tilt, and I had the sense I was standing not in my own life, but in a story older than my grandfather's bones. I went inside and barred the door. I set a chair by the bedroom window and waited. Sometime around 3, the crying started. It wasn't a human sound, not exactly. It rose and fell in a rhythm that reached into my chest and turned it to glass. It came from the tree line, then the porch, then, unbelievably, the roof. The crying circled me without moving its feet, like a needle tracing a record. The ceiling creaked. From the hall, very softly, came footsteps that matched my heartbeat. I wasn't alone in the house. The bedroom doorknob stirred, not turning exactly, but breathing. The radio, dead for hours, crackled back to life with a whisper under the static. It formed a word that could have been my name if the speaker's mouth wasn't made of leaves. The doorknob clicked. The door opened an inch. No one pushed it. The crying stopped. Silence swelled, dense as river mud, and in it, a voice, low, calm, old, spoke from the dark hall just beyond the door. "Give her back." I froze where I sat. The voice had been too clear to be imagination, too steady, too deliberate. Not the wind, not the house settling, not my own mind. It came from the hallway, from something standing just beyond the thin line of light spilling from my bedside lamp. "Give her back." The words didn't echo. They soaked into the wood. I gripped the rifle leaning by the chair and raised it toward the crack in the door. The barrel trembled slightly. I waited for movement, for breathing, for anything. Nothing came. After a minute that felt like an hour, I stepped forward and pushed the door wide. The hall was empty. My boots creaked on the floorboards as I moved from room to room. The kitchen, the porch, the back door, everything was still. Even the wind had died. Then I noticed it, the smell, wet fur and pine sap. It filled the air, thick and cold. I turned to the window and saw the glass fogging again from the outside. Something was close enough to breathe on it. By morning, the tracks were back, this time not circling the house, but leading away. They went toward the forest, and just before the trees swallowed them, they changed shape again, paws to feet, feet to paws, in a stuttering pattern that made no sense. The message was clear: come. I didn't want to go, but the longer I waited, the worse it got. That night, the crying returned, louder, almost angry. The walls shook with it. The photos on my shelves rattled against the glass. It wasn't just one voice anymore. It was a chorus, a pack. Wolves that sounded like people, and people that sounded like wolves. Something inside me broke. I packed what I could: rifle, flashlight, a flask of water, and a cross I found in my late father's drawer. Then I followed the prints into the woods. The deeper I went, the darker it became. Not just from the trees, but from something thicker than shadow. The forest swallowed sound. My boots didn't crunch. My breath didn't cloud. It was like walking through someone else's dream. Hours passed before I saw the first sign of her. A silver thread hung from a branch ahead, swaying in the still air. Hair. Wolf fur, I thought, until I looked closer. It was too fine, too long, human. I touched it, and a whisper crawled up my arm, a word I didn't know but felt deep in my spine. I kept moving. At the creek where I'd shot her, the snow had melted away in a perfect circle. The ground was soft and black, like it had been burned. In the center lay the she-wolf's body, or what was left of it. The carcass hadn't decayed. It looked just as it had the day I shot it, the bullet hole dark and clean. But around it, the ground pulsed faintly with light, as if the soil itself still remembered her heartbeat. I took a step closer. That's when the forest began to move. Branches bent toward me, slow and deliberate, as though reaching. The trees groaned like they were alive and unhappy about it. I could hear movement all around, the shuffle of paws, the brush of feet. The air filled with the sound of low breathing, hundreds of lungs pulling the same breath. And then he stepped into view. He wasn't a wolf, not really, and not a man either. He had the height of one, the shape of another. His skin was shadow stitched with fur, his eyes a burning gold. The closer he came, the more wrong he looked, his face half like mine, half like hers. I raised the rifle, but my hands wouldn't obey. He stopped a few feet away, tilted his head, and spoke with a voice that was two voices at once, hers and his. "You killed what was mine," he said, "so the forest will take what's yours." "I don't have anyone," I managed. He smiled, if it could be called that. Don't you? And suddenly I remembered the old photo on my desk at home, the one of my sister and me by the lake, the summer before she disappeared. How my father never talked about it again. How she'd vanished near these woods. The wolf man stepped aside, and through the fog, I saw a shape. Human, slight, walking barefoot through the snow. Her hair was streaked with silver. Her eyes were open and empty, reflecting the same golden light as his. I staggered back. No. He watched me, calm as the grave. Balance, he said again. Return what you took. The girl, my sister, or what looked like her, raised her hand and pointed toward the creek. The burned earth there pulsed brighter, beckoning. What do you want from me? I asked. Her lips moved soundlessly. The man-beast answered for her. A trade. Then everything went black. When I woke, it was night again. I was lying by the creek, the rifle gone, the air heavy and wet. My arm burned, fresh scratches that spelled a single word in welts across my skin. Choose. And as I staggered to my feet, the howls began anew. Closer this time, circling. He wants me to choose. But between what? Between whom? And how do you bargain with something older than sin? I stumbled through the woods half blind, every shadow twisting into a shape that might have been alive. The wind was gone again, replaced by that hollow stillness that meant the forest was listening. Every tree seemed to lean closer, their bark ridged like faces pressed in pain. The word on my arm, choose, throbbed beneath the skin. Choose what? Choose who? The thought crawled inside my skull and nested there. When I reached the old path leading home, the moon was high, not white, but red like a coal. I stopped to catch my breath and realized something was wrong. The path looked different, shorter. It shouldn't have been possible, but I could see my cabin from the ridge. I'd walked for hours, yet somehow the woods had folded back on themselves, delivering me to my own doorstep. And there, standing by the porch light, was me. At least I thought it was me. He wore my coat, held my rifle, and turned its head with the same stiff tilt I had seen the she-wolf do before she died. His eyes were not my eyes. They gleamed faint gold in the dark. The copy smiled. You shouldn't have come back. My heart lurched. I stepped backward, tripping over a root. When I looked again, he was gone. The door to my cabin creaked open on its own. Inside, the air smelled of pine resin and smoke. Candles burned on every surface, though I hadn't lit them. Their flames bent inward as if the room itself was breathing in. I saw movement in the corner. A figure crouched by the fireplace, whispering something into the ashes. It was her again, the woman, the wolf, whatever she was now. She looked whole this time, solid, her skin pale and perfect, but her eyes were empty voids that swallowed the firelight. You shouldn't have killed me, she said quietly. I didn't mean to, I whispered back. It was a mistake. She stood slowly, her joints cracking like old branches. Mistakes have roots. They grow unless you cut them out. The flames flickered. The room stretched, the walls melting into trees again. I was back in the forest, standing in a clearing I didn't recognize. The woman was gone. In her place stood the man-beast, the avenger, the spirit, the guardian. He stepped forward and held something out. My rifle. The barrel was slick with something dark. Choose, he repeated. Life for life. I don't understand. He tilted his head. You do. Behind him, figures emerged from the fog. Dozens of wolves, but as they drew nearer, their forms shifted, flickering between human and beast. Some I recognized. Old hunters, trappers, townsfolk long gone. Their faces shimmered like reflections on water, each one whispering the same thing: balance the debt. The she-wolf appeared among them, whole now, her eyes soft with sorrow rather than rage. She looked at me as if she pitied me, as if she knew what I would do next. The guardian extended a clawed hand toward me. "The forest does not kill without reason," he said, "but you took reason from it. You will give one in return." I felt my knees weaken. "I can't bring her back." "No," he agreed, "but you can take her place." The world shivered. I saw flashes of memory that weren't mine. The she-wolf running through the snow, her pups hidden in a den beneath the roots of an oak. The flash of my rifle, her confusion and pain as the bullet tore through her. Then, the moment after, when her spirit tore loose and found its way into the forest's heart. She wasn't just an animal. She had been the forest's guardian, a bridge between this world and the next. And by killing her, I'd broken the bridge. Now it wanted me to rebuild it, with blood. The wolves surrounded me in a circle of gold eyes. The she-wolf's voice whispered inside my mind. One life to heal the wound. One heart to replace what you took. I saw the rifle in my hands. My fingers trembled. I thought of my father's silence, my sister's disappearance, all the whispers about Darnell Woods that I'd ignored. Maybe this had been waiting for me all along. Maybe my family's curse wasn't bad luck. Maybe it was inheritance. The beast moved closer, the earth vibrating beneath his steps. "Choose," he said once more. The word pulsed through the air like thunder. And then, from behind me, I heard a soft cry. I turned. Standing at the edge of the clearing was my sister, or what was left of her. Her eyes were hollow, her face pale as snow, her hands trembling. "Please," she whispered, "don't let it take you." The wolves growled low, uneasy. "I thought you were dead," I said. "I was." Her voice cracked. "But it kept me, until now, until you finished it." She took a step forward. "If you give yourself to it, you'll never come back. You'll be its voice, its eyes. But if you refuse..." She looked around at the wolves closing in. "It will burn everything else you love." She reached out her hand. "Come with me before it decides." For a heartbeat, time froze. Two paths before me. Step toward my sister and defy the forest, or stay and accept its bargain. The guardian's voice thundered again, shaking the air. "Choose. Do I follow the last living memory of my sister, or give myself to the woods and end the curse forever? Either way, something dies tonight." The night hung still around me. No wind, no sound, just the pulsing red glow of the moon overhead and the whisper of my sister's trembling breath. She stood only a few feet away, her hand outstretched, pleading. Behind me, the guardian waited, patient and eternal. The circle of wolves had fallen silent, their golden eyes fixed on me as if they already knew the outcome. I didn't. The word burned across my skin again, bright as fire beneath the flesh. Choose. I took a step toward my sister. The wolves stirred, low growls rumbling through their throats, but the guardian raised a hand and they stilled. His gaze pierced through me, cold and ancient. "She cannot leave," he said. "Her soul was taken to balance an old debt. You cannot undo what has already been written." My sister shook her head. "He lies. He wants you to believe that the forest decides everything. But it was him. He took me. He keeps the dead to guard his own prison." I looked from one to the other, my chest tightening. Both spoke with the certainty of truth. Both felt like lies. "What are you?" I asked the guardian. His expression didn't change. "I am what remains when man forgets his promise to the land. I am hunger, and I am penance. You know me already. You called me here with your bullet." He turned his gaze toward the she-wolf's body still lying near the creek, perfectly preserved, fur glistening like starlight on ice. Her death broke the boundary. Now, something must mend it. The earth beneath us pulsed like a slow heartbeat. I could feel it through the soles of my boots, deep and patient, like the forest itself was alive. My sister whispered, "If you go to him, he'll take your soul. You'll become one of them. Not dead, not alive, just a voice in the trees." The guardian's eyes flickered faintly. "If you go with her," he said, "the curse will pass to those who come after you. Blood for blood, forever." The choice cracked open inside me like thunder. I thought of my father again, the way he used to flinch when the wolves howled, the way he warned me never to shoot one, even when they took livestock. I thought of my sister's laughter, her soft spot for wounded things, how she'd bring home injured birds and nurse them back to life. And I thought of that morning, the sight of the she-wolf's eyes staring at me in confusion, not rage. A mistake. A single pull of a trigger, and I had set something eternal in motion. I lowered my rifle. "I'll stay," I said quietly. My sister's expression shattered. "No, don't do this." "It's the only way," I said. "If I run, it'll never end. It'll just start again, with someone else." The guardian stepped forward, his shadow long and sharp. The wolves parted to make a path for him. He reached out one clawed hand. "Then kneel," he said. The forest seemed to lean closer, every branch and root drawing in. The she-wolf's body glowed faintly now, as though it recognized the decision. I sank to my knees in the cold soil, and for the first time since that morning, I felt something like peace. Maybe this was what I'd owed all along, but my sister wouldn't move. She ran to me, grabbing my shoulders. Her skin was colder than snow, her eyes full of terror. "If you do this, you won't come back. They'll erase you. I'll lose you again." "You already did," I said softly. The guardian's hand touched my forehead. Pain seared through me, not physical, but deeper, reaching into memory. Every heartbeat, every breath, every sound of my life blurred and peeled away. My mind filled with the sound of rustling leaves, with the steady rhythm of something ancient and patient taking root inside me. I saw visions, the she-wolf running through endless forest, the moon swelling and shrinking like a breath, the land healing itself, wounds knitting closed. Then, silence. When I opened my eyes again, the guardian was gone. So was the circle of wolves. Only my sister remained, kneeling beside me, sobbing quietly into her hands. But she looked different, warmer somehow. The color had returned to her cheeks. The emptiness in her eyes was gone. She was alive. The body of the she-wolf had vanished. In its place lay a single silver pelt, glimmering faintly under the red moon. And me? I couldn't feel my heartbeat. I stood slowly. The world felt clearer than ever, but also distant, like I was standing inside a glass dome, watching life through fog. My sister reached for me, but her hand passed through mine like smoke. Her eyes widened. "No, you're free," I said. My voice echoed strangely, carrying on the wind, though I hadn't meant to speak loudly. "The curse is over." She shook her head, crying harder. "You can't..." But the forest interrupted her. The trees began to sway, the sound like a deep sigh of relief. Birds returned, their songs tentative but real. The ground no longer pulsed with anger. It hummed softly, content. I could feel it, balance returning. The guardian's voice drifted through the trees one last time, distant now but still resonant. "The debt is paid. The forest remembers." My sister reached out again, but I was already fading into the mist. My body turned to shadow, and shadow to wind. My last sight of her was her face lifted to the dawn, alive, free, and weeping. But as the first light broke through the trees, I realized something. I hadn't vanished. Not completely. I could feel the soil beneath me. The heartbeat of the woods pulsed through it, through me. And when the wolves howled that morning, their voices carried my own. I wasn't gone. I had become what I had feared most, the new guardian of Darnell Woods. But peace never lasts long, because now, something else is coming into my woods, and I can already smell blood on the wind. Years slipped through the forest like water through roots. The world beyond the trees moved on, roads paved, cabins rotted, and men forgot the old names. But the forest didn't forget. I didn't forget. I learned the rhythm of Darnell Woods, the sigh of the pines in winter, the murmur of the stream when the snow began to melt. I could walk without leaving prints, breathe without stirring air. The animals no longer feared me. Even the wind carried my whisper, a part of the endless song that held the forest together. Sometimes I thought I could still hear my sister. She would visit the edge of the trees, calling softly. She brought flowers, left them by the creek. I couldn't step beyond the boundary to meet her. The forest wouldn't allow it. But her voice, it kept the loneliness from sinking too deep. I thought that would be enough. To guard, to remember, to ensure the cycle of balance stayed whole. But peace never lasts where men walk. It began with the smell. Smoke. It drifted through the morning mist, thin at first, then thicker, tainted with oil and metal. The forest hissed in protest. Birds fled. I followed the scent to the northern ridge, where machines had carved open a new road. The trees there lay dying in heaps, their roots exposed like ribs. A crew of men worked beneath the rising sun, chainsaws, trucks, and laughter that had no respect in it. They were cutting into the forest's heart, the place where even the wolves dared not tread. And leading them was a man I recognized. Landry. The same Landry who'd once warned me not to hunt that part of Darnell Woods. Only now, age had curved his back, and greed had straightened it again. He was the foreman of this desecration. The forest stirred underfoot, restless. The spirits whispered like the shifting of leaves. Stop them. Stop them before they wake it again. I felt the old power rise inside me, instinctive, wild, the power the guardian had given me the night I chose to stay. My form wavered between shadow and flesh as I moved closer. The closer I came, the louder the trees groaned, their grief turning into fury. One of the men looked up suddenly, eyes wide. "Hey! You see that? By the line!" But before he could speak again, the light dimmed. Clouds gathered from nowhere. The saws sputtered and died. Silence swallowed the clearing. Landry straightened slowly, peering into the dark tree line. "Probably a generator issue," he muttered. "Check it." No one moved. Then the forest began to whisper. My voice, though I hadn't spoken, carried through the air like a breath inside every leaf. "Leave this place." The men froze. The youngest dropped his helmet and backed away. The others looked to Landry for courage. He stared into the shadows and squinted. "Who's there?" he barked. I stepped forward, not fully seen, but enough. Just a shape half-formed in the fog, eyes glowing faint gold. Landry's face went pale. "No," he breathed. "Not again." He stumbled back, tripping over a fallen log. His men didn't wait. They ran, crashing through brush, shouting as if the woods themselves were chasing them. Only Landry stayed, because the forest closed its circle around him. He looked up at me, trembling. "I warned you," he rasped. "I told you not to hunt here." "You warned me too late," I said. My voice came from everywhere and nowhere at once. "And now you're doing worse." "They made me." He stopped when he saw the shadows creeping closer, twisting around his boots. "Please. I didn't mean harm." The forest didn't believe him. Neither did I. "You broke the pact," I said. "You took without asking. You cut what breathes." He shook his head. "We didn't know." "You knew." He fell to his knees, coughing, choking on the thick air. The ground beneath him pulsed once, like the forest's heartbeat judging him. Then a root broke through the soil, curling around his wrist. Another climbed his leg. The forest wasn't just alive, it was awake. I turned away. I didn't want to watch, but I couldn't stop hearing him beg. When it was over, the roots withdrew. Landry was gone, his body absorbed into the dark earth. Only a mound of fresh soil remained, shaped almost like a man trying to rise. For a long time after that, the forest was quiet again. But I knew the silence wouldn't last. word would spread. More men would come, with bigger machines and sharper tools. They always do. They never stop. And every time they return, the forest grows darker, less forgiving. I feel it changing me with it. The patience fading, the anger taking root. Once I'd been a man who killed by mistake. Now I was something that killed by purpose. Sometimes, when I look into the creek's reflection, I don't see my face anymore. I see the she-wolves, calm, knowing, watchful. And behind her, in the reflection's depths, the shadow of something worse, something waiting. That night, as the moon climbed over the ridge, I heard the first howl again, long and sorrowful. But this time, it wasn't mine. It came from beyond the forest, faint, yet clear. The sound of another wolf, but one that didn't belong to my woods. The forest stilled. Even the leaves seemed to hold their breath. Something had crossed the boundary. Another wolf has come, but it isn't one of mine. The forest trembles like it remembers an old enemy. What hunts the hunter now? The first howl came just after midnight. It started low, almost mournful, then stretched into something deeper. An ache threaded through the bones of the forest itself. Every living thing stopped moving. The trees seemed to tighten their grip on the earth. The river went silent. Even the wind cowered. I knew that voice. Not the tone, but the weight of it. It wasn't one of my wolves. It wasn't of my forest. For the first time in years, I felt something new. Fear. I followed the sound through the northern pines, where the mist never lifted, even in summer. The moon was dim behind the clouds, a ghost's eye following me. The deeper I went, the more the forest whispered, nervous. The roots shifted underfoot, warning me, it is not ours. It comes from beyond. I reached the edge of the clearing where I'd once faced the men who cut the trees. The machines they'd left behind, rusted saws, broken chains, were gone. Something had dragged them away, leaving long grooves in the dirt like claw marks. Then I saw it, a shadow, crouched beside the creek. At first I thought it was a wolf, but as it rose, I saw its shape twist and bend in ways that defied reason. Its limbs were too long, its body shifting as though it couldn't decide what form to take. It looked like smoke trapped inside flesh, and its eyes, black as tar, reflected no light at all. It was feeding on something, a deer, or what was left of one. The forest hissed in unison. The trees bent back as if recoiling. I felt the old power surge through me, my voice merging with the wind. Leave this place. The creature turned. Its mouth opened wider than any living thing's should, splitting its face like cracked bark. The sound that came out wasn't a growl. It was laughter. It spoke my name. My name. The name I hadn't heard spoken by human lips in decades. You wear her shape well, it said, its voice bubbling, uneven, as though several things were speaking through one throat. But you are not the first guardian. I am what remains, I answered, and this forest is not yours. Oh, it hissed, stepping closer. It was mine long before you were born, long before she was bound here. I came from the deep roots, from the soil beneath the soil. You were just a shadow she left behind. Its words hit like cold iron. My mind filled with images I didn't understand. Another time, another guardian, a forest much older, before Darnell had a name. The she-wolf wasn't the first, nor the last. The curse had been repeating, endlessly, through every age. The thing moved closer still, and the ground beneath it blackened, roots curling away as though burned. This place is weak now, it whispered. She is gone, and you are hollow. You can feel it, can't you? The balance falters. I clenched my jaw. If you came for blood, you'll have mine before you touch this forest. It grinned. That is exactly what I came for. The air split. The creature lunged, too fast, too fluid, and I barely had time to summon the old power. The trees screamed as I called them, their branches whipping like lashes. The ground erupted with roots that coiled toward the intruder, but wherever they touched it, they shriveled to ash. The forest had no hold on this thing. We crashed through the clearing in a storm of shadow and wind. My claws tore at its form, but every strike scattered smoke. It reformed again and again, whispering my name each time, mocking me. "You are fading," it said. "Even now, the forest forgets you." And for a moment, I realized it was true. The trees were slower to answer. The ground pulsed weaker. My bond with the forest, the life I'd traded my soul for, was slipping. The creature fed on imbalance, on the weakness left behind by man's ruin and my own guilt. It was hunger made flesh. I retreated toward the heart of the forest, the sacred grove where the she-wolf's spirit had once rested. The creature followed, its laughter turning into 1,000 whispers. "Run, guardian," it called. "Run to the ghost who made you." The grove was darker than I remembered. No moonlight reached it now. The pool at its center had turned black, its surface quivering like oil. I knelt beside it, calling out into the depths. "Help me," I whispered. "If you still linger, if any piece of you remains, help me stop it." At first there was nothing. Then a ripple broke across the water, and a faint silvery light began to spread. The shape of the she-wolf appeared beneath the surface, her form shimmering like starlight on waves. "It was bound before you," her voice whispered in my mind, "and it will come again if you do not end it now. You cannot kill it. You must contain it. Give it your name." "My name," I breathed. "Your name is your soul. The forest will remember it if you give it willingly." The black creature emerged at the edge of the grove, hissing at the light. "Fool," it spat. "She lies to you." But I knew it didn't matter. This was the only way. I rose to my full height, the power of the forest surging through me one last time. My body blurred at the edges, the boundary between spirit and soil thinning. The creature lunged again, claws like shards of night. I shouted my true name, the name I hadn't spoken since I was human. The sound tore through the air, ancient and final. The grove erupted in light. The trees howled, the ground split, and as the creature's claws met my chest, both of us were pulled downward, into the pool, into the soil, into the very roots of the forest. For a heartbeat, everything was fire and shadow and memory. Then there was nothing at all. When the light faded, the grove was quiet. The pool was gone. In its place stood a single tree, black-barked, silver-leaved, and pulsing faintly with light. Its roots ran deep and wide, anchoring the forest's heart. The creature was gone, and so was I, or so it seemed. Because as dawn crept through the trees, a whisper drifted through the leaves, carried on the wind. My voice, older now, softer, but alive. The forest remembers, but legends never die. They grow. And when the next hunter enters Darnell Woods, carrying the same rifle I once did, the story will begin again. Time passed, the way rivers pass through stone. Slow, steady, certain. Seasons changed. Trees grew thick over the old paths. The name Darnell Woods faded from maps, replaced by coordinates and survey lines. Men forgot, as they always do, but the forest remembered every footprint, every echo of breath that had ever crossed its borders. And somewhere beneath the roots, so did I. I was no longer flesh. I had become whisper and shadow, memory woven into bark and soil. My thoughts were slow now, like the turning of the seasons. Yet I knew when someone entered my woods. The forest trembled to tell me. For decades, no one came beyond the first ridge. The curse, it seemed, had done its job. Fear is the oldest kind of fence. But then, one autumn evening, the wind shifted. It carried the smell of oil, gunpowder, and something older. A familiar scent. A man stepped into the clearing. Young, reckless, dressed in camouflage that made him look like a broken piece of the forest itself. He carried a rifle. My rifle. He paused at the creek where I had once fallen. The water was clearer now, running over smooth stones. The silver-leaved tree grew beside it, roots drinking deep from the same soil that had buried me. The young hunter stared at it, frowning. "Beautiful," he murmured. "They said this place was cursed." He didn't sound afraid, just curious. That kind of curiosity that always comes before a mistake. He raised his phone, took a picture, and laughed softly. "No curse here." The wind shifted again. The leaves rustled. The forest whispered my name. The hunter froze. "Hello?" he called out, turning in a slow circle. "Anyone there?" He waited. Silence. Then, soft footsteps in the distance. He lifted his rifle, scanning the trees. That was when the howling began. At first, it was just one voice, low and distant. Then another joined, and another. A chorus of wolves moving through the dark. But these weren't my wolves. These were echoes, the forest replaying its own memory, trying to warn him. He didn't listen. "Coyotes," he muttered, and moved deeper into the trees. Every instinct I had left screamed through the roots. Leave. Turn back. But he walked straight toward the heart of the forest, the place where the silver-leaved tree stood glowing faintly under the blood-red moon. When he reached it, he hesitated, brushing his hand against the bark. His touch sent ripples of memory through the ground, stirring the soil that had been still for years. The air thickened, warm and wet, like breath on glass. Then, from beneath his palm, the bark began to move. He pulled back, startled. "What the?" The tree's surface rippled again, forming a shape. First a hand, then a face pressing out from within. My face. He stumbled backward, dropping the rifle. No, that's not possible." The whisper came from everywhere at once. "You shouldn't have come here." The forest began to change around him. The ground softened underfoot, grass turning to ash. The trees bent inward, closing him inside a living cage. The wind rose, carrying faint voices, my own and those who came before me. "Leave the forest unbroken. Balance the debt. Don't take what isn't yours." The hunter tried to run, but the woods had already decided. He crashed through branches, thorns tearing his clothes. He tripped, fell into the creek, and looked up just in time to see something watching him from the opposite bank. A wolf. Massive. Silver fur gleaming in the moonlight. Her eyes were gold, calm, ancient. The she-wolf. She hadn't faded like I had. She'd returned, reborn, as the forest's guardian once more. The hunter froze, mesmerized. He reached for his rifle, and the moment his hand brushed the trigger, the forest sighed. Roots shot from the ground, wrapping around his arm. He screamed, but the sound was swallowed by the wind. The she-wolf stepped forward, her gaze never leaving him. "You don't need to do this," he gasped, trembling. "I didn't mean..." But the forest doesn't speak in words. It speaks in truth. The roots dragged him toward the tree. The silver bark split open, glowing from within. The last thing he saw before darkness took him was my face watching from inside the trunk, silent and sorrowful. Then the forest closed. By morning, there was no sign of him. Only the rifle, half buried in soft soil at the base of the silver tree. The wind whispered through the leaves, carrying a single word that only the trees understood. A new name, a new guardian. The cycle had begun again. That night, under the same red moon that had watched my death and rebirth, the forest sang once more. Not with pain this time, but with balance restored. The she-wolf prowled through the mist, her breath steaming in the cold. The earth pulsed beneath her paws, and when she lifted her head to howl, I answered her, my voice now part of the wind, bound forever to Darnell Woods. Together, we kept the silence. Together, we kept the balance. Because the forest never forgets, and neither do we. But stories like this don't end. They wait. And one day, when someone else walks into Darnell Woods, chasing echoes of a legend, the forest will wake again. Because every debt paid leaves another seed behind, and every seed eventually grows.